Hello everyone, welcome back to BoldCast, Building on Large Dreams, a podcast series where we sit down with portfolio founders of BoldCap who are quietly reimagining the foundations of how the internet works. Today's episode is about something we all deal with every single day, logging in. You know that moment where you're stuck waiting for an OTP or trying to remember which password you have used? It turns out that behind those few seconds of pain lies a massive problem, one that could cost companies millions of dollars every year and also exposes billions of users to risk. Our guest today, Riya S, is the co-founder and CEO of Hawcx, a startup trying to make all of that disappear. They're building what they call zero-knowledge authentication, a new cryptographic approach that lets you prove who you are without ever revealing any secret. No passwords, no passkeys, no friction. Just trust, invisibly built into every login. And joining her is Satya, general partner at BoldCap and one of Hawcx's earliest backers. Someone who has seen this vision from the first whiteboard sketch to the first customer pilot. We are going to talk about why authentication feels stuck in the 2000s, what makes zero knowledge so different, and how this shift could reshape the way humans and AI agents trust each other online. So let's dive right in.
Hey guys, thanks a lot for joining on the BoldCast podcast series, episode 2. Satya, hi. Riya, hi. I just want to welcome both of you again to this series that we're doing with the portfolio companies of BoldCap. And the first one, we had a lovely session with Honey Mittal from Locofy. And on this one, we are doing it with you, Riya. First of all, where are you guys right now? Satya, you were in Chennai just a few weeks back when we were recording. Looks like you're not here anymore. Where are you right now? And even Riya, where are you guys put up at this point?
Hi, Sid.
Right.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation with you and Satya. Just like Satya, I was also in India a couple of weeks ago. I was in Chennai. I'm back in the Bay Area, back home, and calling in from Los Altos today.
Amazing. How's the weather there?
It is a perfect beach day in, in California today.
Nice. Satya, where are you right now?
I'm in the Bay Area, in the city, probably 30, 40 miles away from Riyadh. Uh, so I can second the fact that the weather is a good day. Um,
Nice.
but Star, thanks for doing this. Thanks for getting all the teams together. Yeah, it's great to have you. Super excited to kind of like talk about what we've always been talking about uh, for 5, 6 months now, uh,
Yeah.
and kind of like put this out there. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's been like super amazing experience to learn how to do this thing and like really fun talking to the founders who are really passionately building. So Ria, just for context, right? Like me and Satya talk a lot about what our portfolio companies are building and stuff. And many times it's all of us on a call and we really talk about high density insights about the things that we're trying to build. The effort here is to like kind of like capture a few of these really good insights from your experience of 0 to 1 and largely about the space in which you guys are like operating in. And if you could sort of distill a lot of this into at least like, I know we can't do like bring everything into this thing, but as much as we can so that our primary audience who we are trying to like really appeal to is the builders and the founders out there who are trying to build AI native applications and different things, and also the talent. Right, a lot of people are willing to really join a lot of these AI companies, but are really thinking about how do we navigate? How are these companies really thinking through about their team hiring and so on and so forth? So it's about bringing a lot about what you guys are building, how are you guys trying to solve the problem, but also on the other hand, think how are you guys thinking about the team, the talent, and many other facets of the company building. And of course here we always would love to get two perspectives. One is a founder looking at this large space, and also how is the investor, in this case Satya, also looking at the problem, the opportunity in itself, and how has been the camaraderie between both the founders and the investors in this journey together. So that's more about what we are doing. And again, thanks a lot for doing this. So just to begin with and get started off, I would love to ask Ria, if we had to like explain Hawcx. And firstly, I really love the name Hawcx. It really sort of gives it has a ring to it. Would love to understand why did you guys come up with the name Hawcx in this context of what you guys are building. So if you had to like really explain what you guys are building to a new senior AI employee or an engineer or a product manager who is really keen on understanding about cybersecurity and what you guys are building in this space, how would you like sort of really explain it to these folks?
Yeah. Thank you. Hawks has really grown into me as well as we since we've started calling the company Hawks. I think it was a random afternoon conversation with my co-founders where we were trying to figure out what we call the company. We knew what we were going to build. We were about halfway through our initial prototype when we were discussing the name of the company.
Mhm.
And like one of us said, we're almost watching everyone that uses the internet like a hawk to protect them from the predators.
Interesting.
So then we were like, yeah, so we're kind of the hawks, right? And then when we looked at hawks as a name, as you spell it normally, there are lots of sports team names, and hawks is a very common name. So obviously we didn't get the domain, but it was also not standing out. Then we thought about, okay, what's unique in what we are building in identity that does not exist today from a security point of view? Yeah, we are watching like a hawk, but then the most important thing that we are dialing in on is the end customer experience, end consumer experience. So then it was a play with letters to say, could we do CX for consumer experience? And it sounded beautifully well as Hawks. And sometimes people refer to us as Hawcx with the X factor, which seems to be the cool thing now. The intention of HAWCX was to call it Hawks, not Hawkx, although it does sound cool in some contexts. So that's how the name came about. Thank you. And then, if I were to explain Hawks to someone that does not understand what we are building, see, I think there's so much to say about identity and the maturity in the identity world or the lack thereof. And we are still very much in the nascent stages of what identity can be and what it should be in the future. So for us, any secret that you store, and when I say secret, think of it as passwords, think of it as your face ID, think of it as your encryption keys, whatever, anything you store is going to be stolen. It's almost like if you have a secret, it is only a secret as long as you don't share it with anyone. The second you share it with anyone, you risk the secret, and it is prone to be shared outside of that. So for us, identity is like that. You shouldn't be storing any secrets whatsoever, passwords or keys or biometrics and whatnot. So that's what we're building. We're figuring out how to get identity to a place where we just know you are you without having to store anything about you. That's what we're building.
Got it. I love that your website says you're rewriting the internet login experience. See, all of us kind of like use so many applications on a daily basis, and password reset is like our default thing. Like every once in like a few weeks, I reset my password because I just like either forget or like some of the other issue sort of comes in. It's always definitely not really a frictionless experience. It is filled with a huge amount of friction. So just to understand, how are you guys sort of rewriting this login experience for the end users?
Um, See, our strong point of view is authentication should just work. It should just be. Do you ever wonder why the internet works? Do you ever wonder when you turn on the switch, the fan works? Because it just works. It's just
Yeah.
invisible to you. It just works. And identity should be as such, and that's our strong belief. As a user, right now, the way identity is at the fundamental level is it gives control of your security to you. Meaning, you have to come up with a password and you have to be responsible enough to remember it and not write it in a sticky note. Or you have to have the discipline to enable MFA in your accounts, whether that is an SMS OTP or a magic link. So, what we have fundamentally done with identity is we have given control of how secure you are on the internet to you as a consumer. And we think it should be the other way around. Like, you shouldn't have to worry about whether your identity works or not. You shouldn't have to worry about how to secure your account. And the most common password is welcome123 across the internet.
True.
And not very hard to guess, is it? So, so the way we think about this is the responsibility of the enterprise. This is the responsibility of the vendor that's delivering you the service, not the user that's using the service. So, how do we make it almost invisible to the user, but still keep them extremely secure? And here's the catch. And how do we make it almost magical for the user where they don't even realize they are logging in? You open the app, you're in. I know you are you, and I've got you in. That is my responsibility as the enterprise. That is not your responsibility. You shouldn't have to remember a password or go into your password manager, logging into your password manager, trying to figure out what the password is, and then let me find my phone, put my SMS OTP, or go and click on a magic link. Or let me turn on passkeys. Wait a second. Do I create a device bound passkey or do I sync my passkey? How do I sync my passkey from my Android device to my MacBook? This all has to go away.
Yeah.
Identity should just work. And that's our point of view. And it should just be entirely the responsibility of the service deliverer, not the receiver of the service.
While I've been hearing you, can we say at full scale of when Hawcx really operates, the impact that it's really achieving at the scale of billions of devices, billions of passwords, can we say it's almost like the invisible trust layer of the internet? Because if you're rewriting the login experience of the internet and you're sort of almost making it invisible, it means that you're really making trust an invisible layer on the internet. Is that a good way to like sort of put it?
See, there are when we say trust, there are lots of layers to it, right?
True.
Identity is a layer, and
Yeah.
then there's a lot more layers to building the trust fabric of the internet. We are defining the fabric that directly relates to an individual's identity, and that's what we are building. And what we are building today at Hawks is phase one of that, is how we'd like to think about it.
Got it.
And I
And
think
yeah.
I'll add I'll add a point here. I think wanna kind of recount my conversation with Ria the first time that I met her, um, in the Bay Area at University Avenue, right? And it was supposed to be a 30 minutes chat, became like a 2 hour chat or something like that. But I think one thing that was very clear, apart from the mission statement about like, trying to go and solve for identity, I think that there is a fundamental belief that Ria has that, and that's also more personal to her and her journey as also being a mom, wanting to create a more safer environment for the future, uh, users of the internet, right? And I think like that is also deeply personal, for why Ria and team is also going after such a ambitious problem. Probably Ria, you might want to give like 30 seconds there. I think that also is very insightful to parts of why you're building and what you're building.
Yeah, so see, I think and I've had this question asked to me many times, which is why are you doing this? You've been very successful in your career. I've had the opportunity and the good fortune to work with some of the best companies, best tech companies in the world, and work with some of the most incredible minds in the industry, where I've often wondered how did I end up here with such incredibly smart people working alongside with them, doing some very interesting things. Um, I do this for one thing and one thing only. And this can get a little bit philosophical, but I grew up in a household that is where philanthropy is part of the basic fabric of the household, and giving back was considered and is considered very, very important. And when I think about how do I give back to the world and what's my role in it, the way I know how to give back is through technology. That's sort of what I grew up in, and that's my area where I believe I can give back. And and I was telling Satya, I was actually fiddling with the data and AI problem just before we started Hawkx, and the impact that it can have on businesses with the problem that I was solving. And then this is a total serendipitous moment for me when my now co-founders Ravi and Silva reached out to me about a mathematical problem that they had solved and then put together a quick prototype to see if there's real world applicability of it. I didn't come from the cybersecurity world. I didn't think about identity as my calling. But when the problem was solved, it just at least theoretically, and then just very practical application of how we could solve this in identity. I went and did about 6 to 8 weeks of homework to understand the space, the competitive landscape, the industry, who's building, what's being built, and what's the fundamental problem in this. And there were so many anecdotes I learned in that process around how the lack of maturity in identity changes so many lives in terms of fraud and financial crisis and economic breakdowns and identity crisis and so on. So I decided to pursue Hawkx with this team because to me it felt deeply personal to have the ability to impact the 6.2 billion people that use the internet and how identity can fundamentally change how everyone uses the internet. Um, so I mean, you would probably hear a lot of people say it's not about the money, but for me, it's about the impact. It is not about the money. It's not about building the company. It's about how do you give back to the world and live and leave the world in a better place than you found it. And as a mom of two young girls, for me, spending time at work also means taking time that I could have with them. So it has to be meaningful, it has to be deeply purposeful. And I have a very strong belief that this will change the way the world works in the future, and I will have a small role to play in it.
Fantastic. Like this is really deep and quite insightful too, because mothers generally take care of kids in the place where they play and where they spend time. In the future, kids will really spend more and more time in a lot of these internet applications, and you're really making these new playgrounds a lot more safer, which itself is like quite a very big dream. And for just a context, for Bold, we sometimes say internally at office, building on large dreams, and this is like definitely something pretty large as an outcome to really sort of achieve, and that's pretty interesting. So just to jump forward, but when you said passwordless authentication, and when I sort of spend a lot more time reading and stuff, there is quite a bit of passwordless approaches that have already been coming up, right? Like there is magic links, there is two-factor authentications, there's face recognition, and people say face recognition and multiple other things are already passwordless in nature, but it still is not easy. One is there's really high friction in adoption even for them, and I'm still not sure are they fully safe and secure as they sound. Would you love to help us and our viewers give a bit more light on what exactly passwordless solutions currently are, and how are they not fulfilling, and how are you guys like doing differently?
Yeah. The most obvious thing is when there is a password, it's a password based authentication system. It's not passwordless. That's
Okay.
clear. Um, so why don't you take a guess of all the cyber crimes that happen? What percentage of cyber crimes happen because there is a password involved in it? Take a guess.
Out of the total number of cyber crimes,
Mm-hmm.
like more than 50%.
Sounds about right. Satya, you want to you probably know the answer to this. We've talked about this so many times. 85.
We're
I played the most safest game. I knew it was definitely not less than 50 for sure.
Yeah. So an astonishing percentage of cyber crimes happen because there is a password involved. Okay. Now passwords need to go away. The industry and the cyber experts are all in vehement agreement that the passwords need to go away.
Mhm.
We all need to go towards passwordless. Now, humble attempts towards going to passwordless are SMS OTPs, magic links, and all the other MFA-like solutions that exist today. Now, if you ask me, are passwords alone secure or passwords with MFA better? Passwords with MFA are better because you not only are breaking one door, you've got to break two more to get in. Now,
Yeah.
does that mean they're all unbreakable together? No. SMS OTPs and magic links, phishing attacks are on exponential rise. Just in the last 2 years, 1100% increase in phishing attacks that are reported. Unreported is not the 4000%. And especially with the advancements in AI, more and more phishing attacks look very real. And I mean, how often do you get text messages? I got a text message yesterday saying, hey, this is your USPS team. Please click on this link and enter your address so we can deliver your package. And they look very real. And for people that are tech savvy and cyber savvy can fall prey for something like this. Imagine a common Joe that lives in, I don't know, rural somewhere that's not as tech savvy and cyber savvy. They will click on the link and put their address to get their
Absolutely.
package delivered, right?
True.
So phishing attacks, in fact, when we talk to heads of identity, at some really large banks, at universities, they are stopping to do SMS OTPs and magic links because of how much they are getting compromised because of the phishing attacks, right? There is hardware keys that you can use, but consumers don't use hardware keys. They are just a pain in the process, so they are not going to use
Yeah.
hardware keys. So the only real passwordless solution that exists today is what we call passkeys. It's a protocol, passkeys, and FIDO2 is a consortium that has put together passkey as the protocol. And the way passkeys work is it's a key-based authentication system. There's a public key, there's a private key, there's a cryptographic operation that happens. And once the prover has proven that they can solve a cryptographic challenge to the server says, okay, you're good to go, and then it lets you in. Now, the challenge with passkeys, as much as it's significantly more secure than every other identity technology that we have today, adoption has been a challenge. And the reason for the adoption challenge is truly multifold, right? It's like iPhone version 1, right? When iPhone version 1 got released, it redefined the idea of a handheld device because you could do so many things with your first version of iPhone. Like it replaced your Walkmans, it replaced your any device that where you used to listen to music, it replaced a camera that you have to carry around separately. It combined a lot of devices into one when a smartphone like an iPhone was released. But I remember there was no ability to download third party services. There was not even a GPS at that time. You were on 3G when iPhone version 1 got released. It was also so darn expensive to buy one. So version 2 and beyond got incrementally better. So
Got
the
it.
way I like to think about it is passkeys is a transformational protocol and truly brought the identity world significantly forward from a security perspective. But there are tons of real world use cases that were not taken into account when version 1 of passkeys were built, and the consortium and the organizations are working together to bring it along forward. And what we are thinking about is how do we make it transformationally better using a key based technology that will overcome the hurdles that enterprises are seeing today for adoption. Not just enterprises, but consumers too, right? We can go in depth to talk about the hurdles it poses and why the lack of adoption and how we are thinking about it. But the shortest way to say it is anywhere you have to store something as a secret, it's not considered passwordless because if there is something to store, there is something to be stolen,
Makes sense.
including passkeys, where there is a private key that has to be stored on the device. And for ease of adoption, that private key has to travel from one device to another to sync across all the devices that you use. So you introduce a security hole in the process. As a result,
Got
we
it.
are overcoming the hurdles that passkeys are post, and that is what we are building in Hawcx.
Got it. So, in order to say, Satya, and we kind of keep saying the incremental innovation versus a leapfrog innovation, and it clearly is like the entire problem has been sort of seen from a very first principle point of view. Also, observing the fact that all three of you, all founders, do not are coming from non-cybersecurity space, right? Satya, would you want to like tell about how you guys, when you guys first saw the Hawcx as a team and as a product and the protocol and everything, it definitely would have looked like a very interesting leapfrog innovation. And how would you have seen that problem and the solution in that lens?
So I want to kind of highlight something here, right? I think
Sure.
most leapfrog innovation comes from outside in and never inside out. And most typically, teams that have solved for this problem for decades always think in a box and not, you know, uh, from an outside in perspective or outside of the box perspective, right? Just because they've seen what all could go wrong, and that kind of limits their thinking around what needs to be done again. I think one of the things that was very clear with this team was one had an outside in perspective. And for you to truly build a company in this category, it was clear that it has to be first principle thinking. And what I mean by first principle thinking in relation to what Hawks is building is it had to be reimagined. The entire stack had to be reimagined, right? Everything from the protocol layer where someone is figuring out how to create these different types of use these different types of cryptography algorithms to kind of like secure uh, uh, identity, right? Like, and of course, the natural way would have been to kind of build on top of existing protocols and kind of build an application on top of it and make it easy to use and make it more enterprise friendly. But that could have only solved for what is already there in the market, right? So it could have been incremental innovation. So I think one thing that was very clear, in the meeting that I had with the team, and even in the first meeting, was like, hey, there is no right for us to exist if we don't have a protocol being built grounds up and reimagining how identity should work in today's world, right? So I think that was very clear from day zero,
Got it.
and that kind of sparked my interest. I think also, I think uh, everyone on the team had a very interesting, point of view around how they could solve for identity. And I think if you just think about the kind of impact that you would have generally in uh, just identity and authentication uh, as a category today, every each of us, both at work and at home, we use hundreds of applications and we all go through the same login process and experience. If there was a way to kind of reimagine that, the amount of touch points that we would have, like Ria mentioned, 6 billion people, but it's just not 6 billion people, right? It's 6 billion people into five different applications that
Yeah.
you use every day. That's 30 billion points of entry every single day for some kind of application or the other, right? And of course, the use cases, can be both at companies and even if you're probably getting just a coffee at Starbucks, right? It has both, kinds of applicabilities, and I think like that's what is very exciting, right? Being able to truly transform, identity and authentication for every single user of the internet is something very infectious, to go after. So.
Yeah. I mean, Ria had said this in another podcast, I think. Making passwords non-obvious and non-existent sounds very powerful.
The
Is the
question was not
enterprise
clear.
market heading towards the similar thought process on what is their view of making passwords non-obvious and non-existent in their enterprise setups?
That's for me.
Yeah.
Um, See, I think we are heading towards that, which is also why enterprises are trying really hard to figure out what does a passwordless strategy look like, right?
Hmm.
Now, availability of technology is one thing. Usability of that technology is a very different thing. Now,
Interesting.
passkey is very powerful,
Hmm.
and it will take the world go passwordless. Now, when you think about consumer change in behavior, Like Satya said, on average, a user uses their phone to log into smartphones to 40, 50 different apps any given month, because we all have at least 100 plus apps in our phones for many different reasons,
True.
and most of them are, the services are hidden behind a password, and you have to prove that you own the password. Now, humans have known passwords for as long as computers have existed.
Yeah.
Now that's a
Shift.
multi-generational shift
Yeah.
in how you use your phones and computers. We have to remember what big of a transformation this is from a consumer behavior perspective.
Yeah.
See, when cloud came about, when I remember 10 to 15 years ago, when cloud came about, I was at IBM at that time, and IBM had a cloud strategy. And my job was to parachute into the largest of enterprise customers to talk about this cloud that is cool and new, and how the whole world is going towards cloud, and all the workloads are going to run on cloud. Keep in mind, these are companies that used mainframes for their transactions and processings. Um, the biggest hurdle we had at that time was the mindset shift in employees that worked at these IT departments in those large enterprises, because they're always used to plugging in servers and cables and heating and cooling the server rooms and so on. That is enterprise change. It was a really hard, painful journey to go from on prem to cloud native solutions. Now, that is a business change where we
Yeah.
are not impacting the 6.2 billion people that use the internet. We are impacting a subset of the people that control how the internet works. Now, imagine going one step further and touching everybody that uses the internet. This is a significantly larger change than anyone could ever anticipate. Now, that kind of change will only work if you make it magical for the end user to experience and go through. Like, they shouldn't feel like they are actually going through a change. Now, if you have to enable passkeys today, your system will ask you, do you want to enable passkeys? And my uncle, who's sitting in some part of rural India, is thinking, I don't know, do I want to enable passkeys? I want to log into my HDFC account. That's all I want to do.
Yes.
Now, once you say, I mean, let's just say in a chance where he says, yes, I want to enable passkeys, then passkeys asks you, do you want to create a passkey on this device, or do you want to use your sync passkey? Man, I don't know again. Just get me to your bank account, right?
Yeah.
So you're letting the decision be made by the user in adoption of the technology. And as a result, it's the fear of the unknown. People are very comfortable using what they know, which is passwords, and they're not going to adopt a new technology just because it's more secure, because they just want
Yeah.
to get to their bank account. That's all, right?
Yeah.
So the introduction and onboarding of end users into this technology has to be in such a way that they don't realize they are going through a change. So I remember this when I think about adoption of Hawks into the world.
Hmm.
It's like teaching a kid how to ride a bike. You're holding them in the back, and they think someone's holding them in the back while they're riding the bike. And at one point, you realize they are stable enough where you don't no longer have to hold the bike, but they're on their own. But they don't realize that until they're on their own. So, adoption of technology that will change people at this scale has to be almost like that, where they feel like someone already knows what they have to do, and they are guiding them through the process, where they don't make any decisions, they don't feel any change, they're just going with it, and it just happens. So that's
Got it.
why I use the word magical, because they don't realize what's going on. They're just in. You're opening the app and you're in. The rest of it has to be handled by the enterprise, and the service provider like us that's delivering that technology. That's how we see it.
Interesting. Correct me if I'm wrong. Authentication fundamentally means it's something I have access to, or something I know, or it is something like I have, which is my eyes or my face and stuff. And generally, people lately have been considering anything biometric, which is eyes, fingers, or anything of that sort, is considered to be a lot more safer than the generic thing. Is it real that face recognition is truly passwordless, or is it not? Is there like any myth around the entire face recognition piece?
See, it's convenient. when you open your phone, you show your face and you get in, it's convenient. And the way
Yeah.
that technology works is it captures your image, we'll call it an iPhone, and when you register your face, it captures your device, it captures your face, it converts into a mathematical equation, and it encrypts that data, it stores it somewhere. So your information is stored on the device. So the next time you get in, sometimes you might do something weird where the equation is not matching up and it'll ask you to put in an actual passcode to get in, and sometimes it'll match and then you go in, right? So it still stores secrets, that is your face, and it's still stored on the device. One. Second is you're not transferring your biometrics from one device to another so that you can seamlessly log in across multiple devices. Biometrics is enabling you to unlock the door, and then behind the scenes you're not using your biometrics to log into your banking app. Your banking app has a password, and your biometrics simply enables you to unlock the password to
Mm.
then send it to the server to get into logging in, right? And then, Siddharth, how much do you want to bet for me to create your biometrics, your deep fake AI image,
Yeah.
and log into your phone, right? Like, I mean, AI, as much as is incredibly exciting in its advancements, almost weekly, it's hard to keep up. Also has its advantages. My threat vectors are significantly spreading faster than we ever thought.
Mm.
And, face recognition is no longer going to be safe because I can create your face and get you
True.
to log into applications more quickly than we ever have been able to. And as a result, Face ID and biometrics is not replacement for passwordless. It can be one step in getting into your phone and then activating the rest of the technology, but it's not a replacement for passwordless technologies.
True. True.
I probably want to add another aspect
Yeah.
here, which we uncovered when we were doing the discovery, right? And probably we are, if it's relevant, you can add on to it. Is the fact that um, before you actually set up, and this is an experience that every all of us would have gone through, right? Before we actually set up your Face ID, you actually put the password. And in most cases, um, like when you're looking at, when authentication is happening through Face ID, typically that face is also connected back to a password. And as a part of the authentication process, uh, I'm assuming that there is a fair bit of connection between the Face ID and the password to let you go in, because the Face ID can go and authenticate the password on the server. Then it gets authenticated, and then kind of like, you and Ria, feel free to, like, I'm going on a tangent here, but I think broadly, one of the probably other common misconceptions is Face ID is passwordless, but in most obvious use cases like your iPhone today, it's still connected back to a password. So
Yeah, no, you're absolutely spot on, which is what I was saying in my earlier comment. The Face ID or a biometric is simply helping you
Yeah.
unlock getting your password, which will then be sent to the server in the backend. So it's almost always tied to a password, right? So it's just a simple lock that unlocks and enables your password to do the thing that you want to do. So nothing's changed. From a user experience perspective, it's gotten easier for me because I at the facade you're actually not putting in a password, but there's definitely a password involved in the process, and it hasn't replaced the passwords.
Interesting. So I want to paint this entire problem from the lens of certain numbers that I've sort of got from a bit of my research. Um, and I want to go beyond the technical problem as such, and this could be something large, right? It says the average firm spends $5.2 million a year on setting and resetting passwords, depending, of course, a large scale firm. Forrester research found that each password reset costs approximately $70. Analysts at Gartner estimate that 40% of all help desk calls are related to passwords and resets. Employees lose 11 hours per year resetting passwords. That's huge. Uh, and as per Deloitte, the average cybersecurity spend, including password reset costs, was $2,700 per employee in 2020. In some sectors, it was up to $4,375. It's not just a security problem as such, right? It could be an economic problem as well, with a significantly large market creation opportunity. Uh, what would be your view on this, as like a venture investor and backer of such a problem, how do you look at it?
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. I think most companies scale when when they are nicely sitting at the intersection of both technology unlocks, and in this scenario, it's authentication, but also it's a big it's a big economic problem as well, right? Definitely, the amount of money that companies spend today to have teams in just solving for passwords. And sometimes when we think about passwords, it's not just email passwords, right? Just
Yeah.
think about all the different enterprise applications that you log in with your email account. At the enterprise, typically, if your email ID or so your email password is forgotten, they have to manually go and fix and reset the passwords across different applications. So when you write to support and a ticket is being generated, and think about all this process that happens.
Yeah.
You're in the middle of a completion of a particular assignment. You get logged out, you're trying to log back in, and you forget the password, right? And then you have two options: either you email support or you call support, right? So there is physically someone sitting and evaluating what went wrong, and is authenticating you and going down the process of resetting passwords both on email and on other applications. And that is a manual process today. Right. So the effort that is gone into just resetting passwords across applications and enabling customers, and in this scenario it is employees, it's massive, right? And businesses have to have that support. Mid to large companies either have internal teams doing this or external teams doing this, and it adds to the workload, to these teams, right? So uh, and if you kind of zoom out, right, and that's where I think the leapfrog moment exists, is everybody would have kind of thought about how do I reduce the number of these calls and password resets. But the way to think about this problem is, why do you even have these calls, right? And I think, like, and that's kind of what is exciting about Hawkx, is kind of reimagining that, both not at the identity and authentication level, but also the cost associated, in password resets, right? So this was also one of the very strong tipping points for us, when we were evaluating Hawkx at on day zero, was the fact that there was also a pressing pain point for these enterprises, to not spend as much for as simple things as password reset. So, yeah, I think
Makes
that's
sense.
that's at least something that I wanted to share. But we are feel free to add anything else.
No, I mean, I think I strongly believe that it's not just a security problem. It is an economic problem. It is I mean, we've talked to some CFOs in the process, and see, the cost to maintain passwords in any medium-sized enterprise is about $5+ million. And then, should a cyber attack happen, the after effects of how to fix that in a medium-sized enterprise is 5 million. And we've talked to companies that have been in cyber situations where they had to spend tens of millions easily to, recover from the damage and the perception and the branding image from those issues. Um, and then, it's also about productivity hit that the teams take, the consumers take. If you think about, see, it also depends on the industry, right? If you think about retail for that matter, if there is a friction in the authentication process, carts drop out. People don't check out, which means it fundamentally affects their revenue flow. And that's a big one for retail. So, the more seamless the experience is for their end consumers to log in, the better off they are in getting their consumers to buy their products. So now this all of a sudden becomes a problem that they want to solve from a CRO's perspective, from a chief growth officer's perspective, not just a CISO problem, not just a problem for the engineering and IT team to fix, right? Now we are like revenue is not flowing in because there was friction in the authentication process. We talk to heads of marketing that talk about spending hundreds of millions of dollars in ads to bring traffic to their websites, but at the end of the day, if that those don't convert to actual revenue, that's a real problem. That's an ROI challenge that they are trying to solve for. When we talk to hospitals and health tech companies, the more seamless it is for their patients and nurses and practitioners to log in, productivity improves, and as a result, they can spend more time with their patients. As a result, quality of care improves, and as a result, revenue improves. So it really depends on the industry, but what you will do when you adopt a technology like Hawks is you are reducing costs significantly. And when I say significantly, it's not hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's millions of dollars.
Of
Sometimes,
dollars.
depending on the scale, it's tens of millions of dollars in cost optimization. It improves your security posture significantly. You pay a lot less in cyber insurance because now you've got a solution where there are no secrets to seal, so it impacts your cyber insurance posture. And you're also working towards your top line growth, depending on the industries we are serving. So this becomes not just a CTO decision, not just a CISO decision. In some conversations, this becomes a CEO decision because of the holistic nature of what this can do to the companies. So we've been very excited about some of these conversations, and surprisingly, the conversation has been beyond the scope of where we thought this would be.
Interesting. Would you help us get share a little more insight on the founding team? Because in order like to build something of this massive scale, the technical capabilities of the team, and not just technical, probably even the go-to-market capabilities, all of it should sort of come together, because it's almost persuading these large enterprises to switch to something which they have been following for like years together. So, how is your team currently structured at this point? And like I've seen that Dr. Michael has joined you guys lately, and that's pretty good stuff, by the way. And congrats to you guys on that. Would you love to explain how are you guys thinking from a talent and the team point of view to solve this problem?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we are three crazy people that came together to think that we can
Absolutely.
change the world. But I guess all startup founders are crazy enough to think that they want to go change the world. We're also one such. So we are a three-person co-founding team, and we complement each other really well. So one of them is a longtime CTO, a builder, an innovator at heart, and loves building things and challenging the status quo, who is our CTO. His name is Selva. And the third co founder is our chief scientist, sort of the math genius behind the scenes. And yeah, it's just unbelievable to me how he thinks about problem solving and how he solves these problems with math. And it's just extraordinary talent. And that's all I'll say. But I think the thing that strung the three of us together is not that we want to go build a company that'll change the world, not that we want to go make a lot of money. The thing that strung us together is we believe that there is a problem that is acutely painful, and we did not come from the cybersecurity or the identity world. So we actually don't know what won't work or what's been tried or what will fail, or we don't have any inhibitions in fundamentally challenging how this whole thing works. And I'll tell you this, when we first talked about whether this is a protocol company or a product company, um, I had a very strong point of view that this is a product company. And there was a point in time in our time together where we realized, wait a second, are we actually building a protocol that fundamentally challenges the status quo that exists today in the industry that literally every company in identity is building upon, which is passkeys?
Yeah.
Now, we have a lot of respect for the protocol that is passkeys, and we truly believe that it is a transformative innovation in security. But there is no other company in the industry, in the world, that is challenging the protocol that's passkeys and trying to build a futuristic version of it. But that was not by intent. That was not the intent. That was not the goal to go and challenge something that exists today. We just built something. And when we looked back, this is what had happened, right? Um, so I think to your point about first principle thinking, that is why this shift is happening, right? Like we're not thinking about, okay, there's something here, let's go build something better. That's not how we approach the problem. We said there's a problem here, how would we solve it? And then when we looked back, wait a second, there's something that already exists, but here are the problems. So we overcome that, right?
Interesting.
So the rest of the team, we're very excited about the team that is in place today. They're all as crazy as we are. They're all builders at heart. They're all innovators at heart. They all strongly believe that they want to change the world and they want to leave a mark in the world. And I think as a startup at this stage, if you don't bring that kind of energy into the team, it's not going to be viable for them long term to bring that kind of passion and energy every single day to work. But don't get me wrong, it is always high energy, but burnout can also happen because you're so excited about doing something, and burnout is very real at this stage. Um, so in many of our stand-ups, which happens every day, we will start the call with, on a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you? But on a scale of 1 to 10, how burnt out are you? And there are times where the teams would say anything more than a 5, we would say just take the day off. Like just don't think about work, take the day off, go energize yourself. You can come back when you're ready, right?
Yeah.
I think it also speaks to the kind of culture we want to build. We want to bring the people that are crazy enough to want to change the world, to make an impact. This is not just a paycheck, but at the same time, we're humans before we are anybody else. And we want to respect the fact that there are times where we don't feel like doing this today. And I would tell the team, hey, I think I need a mental day off today. I can't really push through this today. I'm just going to take the day off, or I just don't want to be on this. And that's okay, because we're all humans and we will all have times where we want to take a mental day off and not push through that day. We've had two recent additions to our go-to-market team who I'm also incredibly excited about. And they come from some deep security background, selling into very large, complex enterprises. They know how to navigate this. But most importantly, they are deeply passionate about this space, which is what I love the most. Just beyond excited to have them on board. And then last but not the least, Dr. Michael Jones. Mike is one of the core inventors of the JWT token. For those of you listeners that know what the JWT token is, it is how the world logs in today. It is literally how identity works today.
Okay.
Mike has been in identity for his entire career, 30 plus years at Microsoft, contributing to the standards and identity world. And there are not a lot of people that have contributed to technologies that change the way the world works at the as long as Mike has. There are not a lot of people like that. Mike was also one of the core contributors to FIDO2, WebAuthn, passkeys, and so on and so forth. So when we first met Mike and talked to him about what we are building, he was excited, but obviously skeptical because we are building something that is not passkeys. So we spent a lot of time helping Mike understand our point of view, understanding Mike's point of view in terms of adoption and challenges. And when we somewhat came to an agreement that Mike was going to join us as a consultant distinguished engineer, I asked Mike, "Why are you doing this? You've been a core contributor to the golden standard of passwordless, which is passkeys as it stands today. So why would you join a company like Hawcx?" And this is what Mike told me. He said his goal is to push identity forward as much as he can in his career and life. And going passwordless is the future, hence his contribution to passkeys. But he also recognizes the hurdles and challenges that passkeys have posed in areas that has inhibited adoption. So his goal is to contribute to technologies that will move the world going passwordless, and he sees Hawkx as a key contributor to that initiative, and hence his intent to join us and contribute to what we are doing. In fact, Mike wrote a blog about why I joined Hawks not too long ago on LinkedIn. You can link that if that's interesting.
Absolutely.
But yeah, very very excited to have such a power packed team. But we talk about how kindness is cool. We can all disagree. We can all be because these are all very strong personalities. When you come with so much passion,
Yeah.
these are all people that have very strong personalities. They're all very proud of what they've built. But obviously, we want to challenge each other.
Yeah.
So I repeatedly tell the team we cannot be shy of challenging each other. In fact, we want to challenge each other. As long as we do so respectfully, that will collectively move us forward. And that's the culture we hope to build, and that's the culture we hope to build as we continue to grow. But it's been a phenomenal the past several months has been phenomenal in just bringing some of this top talent and uh, quite frankly sometimes a little scary because of the brain power in the room and the kind of questions and conversations that we have. But it would be too comfortable otherwise. Discomfort is where we all thrive, so we are enjoying it.
Satya, you have been seeing cybersecurity as a space, and agentic era has like sort of exploded already. Does your conviction about what Hawks is trying to do continue to grow? And if yes, how in the agentic era? Because authentication in the agentic era is probably a larger issue as well.
I
Anything
think I
you are
think this
observing?
is a yeah, I think this is an active opportunity that we are considering at Hawks as well, right?
Hmm.
Today, I think the number of uh, AI agents, as you would call it, and different types of AI that will access the internet, access applications, are gonna probably 10x what humans have done so far. But having said that, the opportunity to first solve for humans is very, very important.
Hmm.
So the key part of what we're building here today is the protocol still continues to remain to be the same. So you would still have the opportunity to kind of like both service humans and AI agents to who want to access both applications and just the regular internet, right? And then I think like and like I said earlier, the goal was to build a protocol out so that we can show how we can do this without passwords. And we are extending this both for humans and for agents. So there is, of course, a priority roadmap,
Yeah.
which the team will have to decide. But I think the opportunity is to serve both and not neglect any of them, right? So there is an opportunity to serve for both, and of course the human authentication market still will continue to remain and will continue to
Of
remain to
course.
be a very large opportunity, but there will be um, hopefully a 10x opportunity in the next 10 years as AI continue to access the internet. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, got it, Satya. Uh, Ria, just a quick question because when I see this AI applications and stuff, I'm seeing OpenAI building the agent mode where you really can delegate a lot of processes like booking a cab to booking a ticket and many other such interfaces are being in control of an agentic mode of an AI tool. And on the other side, you had mentioned earlier, which is anyone could sort of mimic an AI face of mine and then simply sort of unlock a lot of these password less face recognitions and stuff. So, what does it mean to understand trust in the AI world, and how do you Hawks internally understand about trust in the AI world? How does it sort of fit in place?
See, we play in the authentication world, obviously in AI, because AI security is also a really significant space, right?
Yeah,
And what we know how to do is how do we know you are you? That's the problem that we can solve in the
yeah,
AI world as well. And here is what's going to happen, which is already halfway happening, right? You will tell your personal agent to go book a weekend for you. And
hmm,
then your personal agent is going to go look at your calendar, agent, and then find out when is your last meeting on a Friday evening, and then figure out how long you need to get to your airport, and then work with the United agent to get a flight for you, and then work with the Marriott agent to get a hotel, and then put them all back in your calendar, and then
Yeah.
maybe work with the Uber agent to book a taxi for you to get to the place that you have to get to,
Yeah.
all without you having to interfere in this highly autonomous world.
Hmm.
Okay. So now when that happens, yeah, you want your Marriott agent to have access to your calendar to put in the time when you're going to stay at the hotel, but you also don't want your Marriott agent to know when you're having your highly confidential investor meetings that's happening. So you're not giving blanket access and authentication to all these agents that you're interacting with on a daily basis. You're going to give them access to the things that they need access to at the times that they need access to, and
True.
then revoke access because these agents can go wild if
Hmm.
you give them access to all your agents that you're working on your behalf. Now, all of a sudden, this becomes very interesting in the authentication and authorization world because
Mhm.
now I am not just Ria logging into Wells Fargo, but I am Ria's agent logging into Wells Fargo only to download the statement for this month. I cannot have access to anything else. That is a task that I need to complete, and I have no business logging into Ria's bank account after that. So then you need to define how authentication has to happen specifically, not as a role, but as a task, but as a specific engagement that it needs to complete, specific action that it needs to complete. So just because you had access to my bank account last week, I cannot give you access to it today, right? So then authentication becomes much more granular. And as a result, you have to build the infrastructure that will support such granular level of access across this really complex matrix of agents that will pop up. And if humans are 6.2 billion and applications are 100 apps each per humans, this is a different scale altogether.
True.
Quite frankly, in the AI agentic authentication world, there's a lot of work going on. There's a lot of working groups, a lot of standard bodies, lots of work going on. But quite frankly, with what we've heard so far and seen so far, including us, we have a point of view. Everybody has a point of view. But no one really knows all the wild things that we need to handle because we haven't really gotten exposure into all the things that agents will do wrong. I mean, agents will do a lot of things that will increase our productivity and move the human race forward, but they can also get us into a lot of bad situations that we need to avoid. And if we don't get authentication and authorization right, this can become really chaotic. So the opportunity is massive. No one really knows what the hell they're doing. Everyone's experimenting, everyone's building a point of view. I think a lot is yet to be learned in the process. And we'll have a role to play. We have strong points of view. We'll have a role to play. We have a working prototype of how we very granularly authenticate and authorize agents to do tasks. We are in some early conversations, just exploratory conversations with large enterprises, understanding use cases. See, if someone claims to know what they're doing and they have a solution, they're lying to you because we don't know it. We don't have enough data to know everything that needs to be
Hmm.
done in the authentication for agent space. So we are learning, just like how enterprises and use
Yeah.
cases are being built. We're learning in the process,
Yeah.
and we will have a role to play in agent authentication.
Uh, Before, I would love to ask you about some insights from the customers. I want to just ask, does any of the scale or the potential of the scale create like overwhelm you guys at any level at any point, or you see it every single day as like an opportunity that you guys are going after?
No, it actually excites us. It doesn't overwhelm us. We're when we look at the scale, it definitely excites us. And I think founders are a different breed, right? And Satya can speak about this more than I can. These are the things that we find exciting, and we're like, oh my goodness, okay, can we actually handle 40 billion agents at this scale? And what's the performance? Like, these are things that excite us. Um, and quite frankly, the opportunity is
I
significant.
think I think this is what I tell everyone, right? I think just like being an entrepreneur is like 100x harder, in life. I think lots of compromises.
Yeah.
You need to be on top of your game every single day. You need to try building the best team around you. You need to go convince customers who have not done this before to kind of trust that you're the best person in the room to do it. You are grinding through the week, and trying to solve many related problems, but also sometimes unrelated problems, right? At the end of the day, it should be worth it, right? And for it to be worth it, I think it has to be something that is big enough,
True.
that that can truly be transformative and can be a potentially a generational company, right? And I think the problem statement itself and how ambitious the team is, I think I would put them in the generational company bucket. So lots to prove out, but we are directionally in the right market, right space, right problem statement. So and I think like that's what excites the best teams to kind of come and join the founding team as well,
Yeah.
right? Like of course I think the best of engineers, best of researchers, best of technology folks wants to join the most ambitious problem statements, and that's why you would see congregation of talent and density in some of the companies.
Absolutely. You were saying, Ria, that a lot of these learnings come from your customer interactions and stuff. In your journey of building the protocol today, how much of your potential customers or enterprises have really helped in shaping this protocol up till here? Uh, any interesting insights that you could sort of share on how customers are, at the end of the day, the users who are really using these applications out there, see a benefit with Hawks, and how has been their overall thinking towards something like Hawks as a solution for them?
See, every interaction that we have with a potential buyer is a pot of gold for us, is extremely valuable for us. Because there are things that they, as they are on the inside, there are things that they ask us, and the questions always stem from a problem that they are facing or a problem that they are trying to solve.
Mm-hmm.
And that directly feed into how we think about our product roadmap, how we think about what to prioritize, and why it is an important thing for the kind of customers that we are going after. See, the foundational protocol was built because there is a problem, and then the enhancements to that protocol happened because there are statements that we want to make when we go talk to these really large companies. There are, sometimes it would be a statement like, we never store anything across any of your users. And even if you want to, you cannot connect the bits that we store to the user because it's completely anonymized. So sometimes we would sit in a conversation between the three of us, and I will tell them, this is what I want to go tell the enterprise. So tell me how we can make it happen on the protocol side so we can go make this claim. And, obviously, this is really long hours of conversations with coffee or Diet Coke or whatever boosts your energy. And then eventually, in a 2 or 3 day sprint, we'll come back with, okay, if you want to go make this statement, here is how the protocol will evolve, and here is what we need to do. And sometimes we'll make the call to go make that change, or sometimes we'll be like, yeah, it's too disruptive for the protocol. We might lose this, this, and this as a result. We can't go make the statement, right?
Hmm.
So, I come from a long-term enterprise selling experience, and as a result, I understand how powerful some of these statements can be when you talk about these two potential buyers, especially the CXOs
Yeah.
and such of really large enterprises. So there's power in making very simple statements that you can boldly claim backed by your technology and what you can prove with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that is one of the things when I say we really complement each other. My CTO, Selva, and Ravi, the scientist, will go figure from a technology perspective, but I got to give them cues on this is a statement when we make will blow away the audience. And then we'll reverse engineer that to figure out how do we go make that statement from a technology perspective.
Got it.
So those things has been really useful. So that is the second phase of how we evolve the protocol. And then the third phase is when we actually go make those statements and when we actually hear reactions to it. And then sometimes we will have prospects tell us, yeah, that's really cool, but this is a bigger problem that we need to solve. One of the things that we keep hearing over and over again from enterprises, there are tons of point solutions in the market. Now,
Okay.
as a large enterprise, I'm dealing with 15 vendors doing very specific things in identity. Now, if you can consolidate that into a single platform that becomes a lot more usable. And if you think about it, there is a lot of platform play across identity, and it is a real problem for enterprises.
Yeah.
It was not the thing that we set out to do, but I think it will inevitably become the thing that we have to do because it is a pain point with enterprises. So that's where the shaping of protocol and the product happens when we hear real world feedback from customers.
Got it. Understood. And at this point of time, s- there's a lot of AI rush happening in terms of the narrative and all of it, right? How is your team sort of looking at this entire story of AI, and what are you guys like fundamentally shaping the inside DNA of your team? Are you guys like adopting to a lot of these things, or are you guys like laser sharp focused on what you guys are building? But just trying to understand how is the team adapting to the overall AI native way, or whatever we sort of calling it lately. But that's something that I would love to know, the entire DNA mix of your team.
Yeah, see, I'll answer this in two different segments. One is the advancements in AI and how we operate as a company. We are constantly evaluating how AI will accelerate us. We are
Mm-hmm.
constantly evaluating how AI will push us forward in the speed in which we can go. That includes, using AI tools to innovate faster, to write code faster, to test faster, to load test, whatever it is, right? Like we're using existing AI tools, and quite frankly, it's really hard to keep up with the amount of goodness that comes out of what AI can do in increasing your productivity and moving forward. The other side of it is productizing AI into the platform we are building. And I think in this day and age, if you build a SaaS company, you almost have to have AI built into it. Otherwise, you'd be stupid not to, right?
Yeah.
Because the expectation is that your systems are smarter than ever before, and you
Yeah.
kind of have to give that to your customers. So there's an AI element built into the console, and we continue to improve that and showcase how AI can add more value than what's already built into the platform.
Yeah.
And then the third part of it is equally exciting to see the advancements in what AI can do, but it's also a challenge for companies across the world in many different gamuts. But from our perspective, our threat vectors are now expanding. Like AI can do a lot more in breaking into
True.
phishing attacks and breaking into deep fakes, and identity becomes a lot more scary with advancements in AI. And we talked about some of that. We talked about
Yeah.
deep fakes, talked about phishing attacks. So our goal is to build beyond what AI can do to protect the identity of the user. So it's
Hmm.
almost a challenge to us that bring it on, and here are all the things that AI will do that will question the very fabric of what we think identity is today. And how do we build beyond what AI will pose as a challenge and still be secure and
Hmm.
unbreakable, right? Like that's sort of how I think about AI. AI in the product, how do we use AI to be better, faster, more optimized? And then, like, what can AI do to us that will challenge the product itself?
True. And how much does a chip design or a cryptography play a role in authentication? Like, how are they related? If you can, like, sort of explain, is there like a relation between chip level designs and the overall cryptography as a technology for authentication as a process?
100%. It's very much related, and it is the very fabric of our existence. So we are a key-based authentication system, just like passkeys. We use cryptography behind the scenes to authenticate our users. So cryptography is the foundation of what we build. The reason why this chip level performance and expertise around that, which is one of our co-founders, the chief scientist, is also a serious semiconductor expert at the chip level. And it's important because when you log into your bank account, you don't have 3 seconds to wait for you to log in. You've got less than a second. If you don't log in, you're frustrated already. You're buying something on your, I don't know, e-commerce. You find a cool new pants. You want to check out. You're like driving, clicking checkout. You can't log in 3 seconds later.
Yeah.
Forget it. You don't even want it, right? Like people don't have the patience to wait for more than a second to get into their accounts.
Yeah.
So at that point, when you authenticate billions of people and sometimes hundreds of thousand concurrent users logging into systems, every nanosecond matters, because these
Got
calls and the challenges that the user has to solve from a cryptography perspective,
it. Hmm.
just completely abstracted from the user, has to happen at lightning speed. It has to challenge the very core of physics to get you into your services and logins as quickly as possible. So,
Mm-hmm.
having experience at the chip level to understand how performance can be optimized every nanosecond matters significantly for us.
Interesting.
And it is one of our superpowers. Like you blink and you're in, and that's what we promise to the customers that we're talking to. So
Interesting.
it's really important for us. The marriage of semiconductors, chip level performance, cryptography, which directly ties into enterprise adoption and as a result consumer experience. They're all tightly married together.
Fascinating. Satya, you have been like sort of looking into chip design a bit lately as well. I mean, for quite some time, and we have sort of been double clicking on it as well. And the overall chip level performances, chip designs, and that being as a service to other potential categories like this. Especially, let's say, cybersecurity is also something you have been super excited about as a space with multiple investments in this category. Do you see more adjacent spaces or opportunities that a potential builder should be sort of looking at in this sort of a category?
Yeah, I think, see, fundamentally, we got to agree that the threat vectors have changed, and there are more newer forms of threat vectors that have come up in the last few years. And if you look at cybersecurity, I think it's all about being able to cover as many of these loopholes as possible and also cover as many of these threat vectors as possible, right? In the world of SaaS prior to AI, I think a lot of it was just like protecting networks and identities.
Mm-hmm.
But now I think, in the world of AI, I think it has multiple aspects, right? It's like it has aspects of protecting data pipelines. It's about protecting embeddings in, these different models. It's even, having guardrails around these models.
Cool.
It's like today attacks have become more AI native themselves, right? So they are automating phishing attacks. They are kind of doing code exploits. A lot happening, in just being autonomous in these threat vectors, right? And like what Riya was mentioning, like today you're giving access to a specific agent for a specific task, but what if this agent goes and kind of like downloads critical information when you're asleep? Does the agent have that capability or not? There is a lot happening on the SOC piece, which is all the kind of incident responses that are happening at L1, L2, and how do you respond to it based on anomalies, triaging it. There is lots of opportunities there, and yeah, I think like whenever there is a single threat vector that gets added, into the mix, the number of opportunities are 10x because the threat vectors itself kind of gives these malicious actors different ways of entry into a system. So yeah, we are very bullish. We'll continue to be bullish, and I think like adding to all of this, I think as we look into authentication, what also excited us about Hawks was not to forget what is the current market opportunity as well,
Yeah.
which is authenticating humans as well, and humans will continue to hold the key if there is a key, in the future, uh, will continue to hold the key. So, how do you kind of continue to authenticate them, but also support the future, right? I think, so yeah, I think like a bunch of these different opportunities, including what Hawks is doing today.
Interesting. Cool. I just have like the last couple of questions before we sort of like wind it up. Ria, like, what's the one thing the entire cybersecurity industry fundamentally believes that you think would probably be proven false in 5 years? Is there anything that you have as a point of view?
I think the cybersecurity world thinks in order for you to authenticate someone, you need to store something and then verify them against that.
And you
And
think
that is
that'll be proven?
fundamentally flawed,
Got it.
and that will change.
Nice. Got it. And what do you think would it take for like a billion people to adopt a passwordless authentication in the next 3 to 4 years? Like, what would it really take? Would it take a push from uh, policy, or would it take a push from a lot of enterprise leaders adopting one after the other, or you think anything else that you feel strongly to reach such large a scale?
Um, you make authentication invisible,
Mhm.
so your consumers don't find it difficult to adopt a new technology. Like the foundation of what needs to happen for authentication to go passwordless exists. The reason why it is not working is because you've given the decision to the end user to adopt it or not.
Hmm.
When you make the technology invisible,
Hmm.
it will happen. And then policies will
Interesting.
change, and regulations will change, and compliance will change. And all of that, I think, is means to the end. It's not the end. That's not the thing that's going to make your users use passwordless. The thing that will make your end consumers go passwordless is when you make it invisible for them to adopt it.
Got it.
That will happen. And then everything else needs to follow to support that.
Got it. And how would the internet look like after passwordless authentication? Have you guys ever imagined this paradise world when there are no passwords? Do you see or envision a world like that? And of course you do. And anything that you could tell us on how this would look like to paint a picture for it, let's say in 2030 or 2035, whenever it's happening.
Uh, 2030 is happening.
That's
Um,
it. That's a thumbnail.
and see, identity will become ambient. And if you believe
Mhm.
in God, it just exists. You're experiencing it, but it just exists, right? So see, the thing is that by 2030, if authentication is noticeable, then we have failed.
Hmm.
It has to be invisible, it has to exist, and it just works. Like electricity, like Wi-Fi. It will just work. That is what
Hmm.
success is.
Interesting. Satya, what's like the boldest prediction you're willing to make about the future of internet in the authentication space? Like, of course, it's passwordless for sure, but anything that you see as a prediction.
I think again, like I'll just stick to authentication today, just because I think we're on that topic. Uh, I believe one thing that Apple has done, that has kind of made everybody believe that technology is accessible and whatnot. I think what they've done very well is the fact that most of the complex capabilities go in the background, and you're just like obsessed around customer experience. So if you can put customer experience in front and put all of your complex technology behind, that is the only way that you would reimagine internet and reimagine authentication. So I really am looking forward to logging into a banking application without having to go type in your email ID and password, and putting in an OTP that comes to your email, and then you figure out that your phone is dead and you don't have the OTP, then you are running to get your laptop. The OTP has already expired. So I'm looking forward to a world where, that we are able to log into a bank, but at the same time feel absolutely secure about it. I think, um, I think that's going to be the day where we feel that we have arrived.
Interesting. Ria, any inspiration that you really take from a when we've seen innovation from thousands of years, but anything that really inspires you as a founder to really like design something like this for the future of internet? What's your like inspiration with respect to Hawks?
Um,
You should talk about the Google days. I think Ria saw multiple billions of uh, login into the internet. So I think I was fascinated. I think all of Ria. I'm gonna take your question,
Please go
um,
ahead.
and I think like just kind of some of these recounts of what we've spoken in the past. I think it's just generally a mix of things, right? Like, uh, and this is like when Ria was telling me about her experience at Google, just looking at scale of people, using the internet, accessing information, and every single, uh, incremental feature that you add, it kind of enables everybody's lives on a day-to-day basis. I think, that's a very powerful, feeling to have, when you're kind of going after these big problem statements, right? Like how can you kind of impact and affect people's lives? So I think, yeah, I think probably you should talk about that.
Okay. Um, so when I was at Google, at least at that time, there were 8 products in Google's portfolio that touched a billion users every day.
Wow.
Billion users every day, right? Like you and I probably use 6 out of those 8 every single day. Um, and I remember this one specific incident, and I'm not sure, Satya, if I've told you this one specific incident where I was sitting in a room full of engineers, leaders, some executives, and there was an outage. Spotify was down. I believe Amazon was down. There were a few other really large providers that were down, and it was a CDN issue. And everyone was trying to do their part to get it up, to get all these systems up, trying to figure out what the root cause is. A lot of the Google customers were impacted because of that, because there are only 2 large CDN providers that most people use, and one of them were down. And it was about 2 o'clock lunchtime, and an engineer calls the other one and says, "Hey, let's go get lunch." And then the one that is sitting in front of the computer trying to debug and trying to get to the root of the problem says, "Let's fix the internet before we go get lunch." Like I had goosebumps just listening to that statement saying, "Let's fix the internet before we go get lunch." Like how powerful of a statement is that? And how often do you get to sit in rooms that can have that kind of impact, right? And then I was very proud to go talk to enterprise customers. Every time when we walked into enterprise customers, executive briefing centers, I had the privilege of being in the Bay Area. So I had a chance to talk to some of the most influential brands in the world. And every time I said there are 8 products that touches a billion users every day, there was so much pride in saying that. So when I met Satya, I told him, "Listen, millions don't excite me. Like millions, hundreds of millions, they don't excite me. Like I think in billions. Like if it doesn't impact a billion people, I'm not interested in that problem." And that gets me going. Like when you talked about, does this scale scare you? No, it absolutely excites me, that the scale of what we can do and the impact that we can have absolutely excites me. And from a technology perspective, Satya touched on this, which is Steve Jobs had said this several times, which is the most magical experiences to end users come from the most complex problems that you've solved behind the scenes. So
Yeah.
the experiences are so magical for the users. And we draw a lot of energy from that statement at Hawks, because in order for you to create the most invisible experience to log in, there is so much that needs to go behind the curtains for that to make that work seamlessly. And we take a lot of pride in doing that, and we still have a lot more work to do. We are nowhere close to the end state, but that's a line of inspiration that we draw from a technology perspective. And I'll close with this one thing. There is a famous quote from Theodore Roosevelt. I'm a huge fan of Brené Brown, who's a leadership coach, and I think of her as my hero. I subscribe to a lot of her leadership philosophies. And she talks about this quote, which I don't have it memorized, but what it essentially says is, if you're not in the arena, fighting in the war field with your team, with blood and sweat and injuries, you have first of all failed your team, because you're not with the team, fighting with the team in the battlefield, taking on your enemies. And I am a strong believer of that. I like to roll up my sleeves and be with the team as they go through every single turn. And the other thing it says is, if you're not in the battlefield fighting with me, and if you're in the arena making comments about me, I'm not interested in it. It's like, how when you're watching a cricket match, there are 11 players playing on both sides, but the entire auditorium is like, "Oh my God, that's a catch. You should have caught it." Or, "Oh my God, why is that not a six?" That's not a six because it's so bloody hard to make it a six, right? So you can make a lot of comments not being in the
True.
battlefield, not being in the arena, but you have to figure out how to tune out the signal versus the noise. And if you're not in the battlefield fighting with me, I'm less interested in a comment that might randomly distract the team. And I subscribe to that pretty heavily.
Awesome. I think this is like a great note to sort of end this episode. First of all, thanks again, both of you, for joining in. And Riya, it has been like a extreme privilege to have been partnered with you from very early on. I'm speaking also on behalf of Satya here, on behalf of BoldCap. It's been like a really, it's great to always like talk to founders with like you who have extreme passion about what you guys are building. And that's what we want this BoldCast series to be all about, and how can we sort of distill a lot of this. I learned a lot today, for sure, to be very honest. I'm new to this and I learned a lot, and I really think a lot of folks who will hear this will really also learn a lot about authentication in general, which we all are a user of on a daily basis. So thanks again for this. Thanks, Satya, for joining in. Looking forward to growing with you guys together and see where this goes. And I'm sure we'll do another podcast very soon. And I want to end this that 2030 is the year where passwordless authentication will truly take its shape.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a privilege to be here. Thanks for having me, Satya and Sid.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Bye.